Hi, I'm Missy from Rambling Rose Farmhouse, and I'm glad to have you here with me today. Today I'm going to be starting a new batch of kefir from dehydrated grains. So I assume that if you're watching this video, you already know what kefir is, but just in case you don't, it's a fermented dairy drink, and it's much like yogurt in that it contains all of those healthy, good gut bacteria. We like to use the kefir in our smoothies. Also, one of the really great things about kefir is that you don't have to get a new culture every time you make it. Like with yogurt, you know, a lot of times you have to keep getting a new culture. Well, with kefir, your grains just keep reproducing as you make the batches, and so you strain them off and then you use them again to make your next batch of kefir. So this is really one of the simplest type of ferments that you can do. It's one of the simplest things with the good gut bacteria for your gut in there. Once you get it started, it is so easy, and I will show you that. But the first thing we have to do is get these grains rehydrated. Now, if you know someone who makes kefir, they probably would be happy to share their grains with you because, like I said, they keep reproducing and you end up needing to get rid of some of them. So if you could find somebody that you know that makes kefir already and get grains that are already hydrated, that they're already active and using them, that's the easiest way to do it. But if you can't do that, which I couldn't find anybody with kefir grains now that I need some, so I went ahead and ordered some dehydrated ones. So now I'm going to start the process of rehydrating them, and this is going to take several days, but I'm going to take you along with me so that you can see the different steps and see how it works. Okay, so the things you're going to need your dehydrated grains, which I will try to link some options for you below. You're going to need a mason jar. You are going to need something to cover your jar with. I have a little round piece of fabric and a little rubber band. And then you're going to need milk. Now, to rehydrate these grains, you need to have pasteurized milk. And you can't use ultra pasteurized milk. So you're going to need to have pasteurized milk. We use raw milk here. We have our own cow and we use raw milk. So I had to go to the local dairy. We have a dairy that's not very far down the road from us, and I bought milk from them to use for the rehydration process. Now, once I get my grains rehydrated and once they're actively working, which hopefully I won't need more than just this 1 gallon to get them active and healthy and doing good, then I can switch them over to my raw milk. But you can't rehydrate them with raw milk because the raw milk has too many bacteria of its own in there, and so it just competes with these kefir grains when they're trying to get going and get their strength going. So it's better to use a pasteurized milk so that they can do their thing, what they need to do, and then it's easy to switch them over to the raw milk, and it works perfect like that. I've made kefir with raw milk for years and years and years with no problems. So I'm going to go ahead and let's open up my little packet here. So your kefir grains are going to come to you in a little sealed up package like this, and they're dehydrated, so they're just little hard lumps. And I'm going to go ahead and get these open. Okay, and this is what they look like. And here's a close-up shot of them so you can see what they look like. They're just hard little lumps of kefir grains. So there they are. You can see what they look like. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and get this milk open. Oh, I don't know if I said this or not, but it's best to use whole milk. You can switch to a lower fat milk later, but when we're starting out here, it's best to use a whole milk, and remember, pasteurized, but not ultra pasteurized. So we're going to place these grains down here in the bottom of our jar, just like that. And then I'm going to pour 1 cup of milk over them. Now you don't want to start with more than 1 cup. You just start with 1 cup because you need to keep the ratio of your grains to your milk. There's a certain ratio there. So as these grains, as soon as they get to where they're a little bit rehydrated, we can add a little bit more milk. But as you go along, they will, like I said, they'll reproduce, and then you'll have to add milk equivalent to their reproduction. So like when I have twice as many grains as what I have now, I'll need 2 cups of milk. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to cover these, and I'm going to set these aside, and we'll come back and look at them in 12 hours and see what they look like. Now, if you have other things fermenting in your house, like sourdough or kombucha or something like that, you need to put your kefir away from that, because these things can cross-contaminate each other. And kefir is supposed to be one of the things that can get cross-contaminated the worst, or the easiest, maybe, I guess you would say. So you need to be sure and place your kefir in a different room from your kombucha, your sourdough, things like that. So we will come back in 12 hours and look at this and see whether the consistency of the milk has changed any. Okay, so here's my kefir after the first 12 hours, and as you can see, it basically looks the same as it did when I first put it in here. So I'm going to go ahead and sit it back down on the counter and let it go for another 12 hours, and we will look at it then and see what it looks like. Okay, now we are at 24 hours, and I'm not sure if you can tell this, but it's definitely a little thicker than it was before. It's not, you know, fermented and what I would call finished, but according to my directions, I need to go ahead and strain the grains out and then add fresh milk after 24 hours, because we have to give the grains fresh milk so that they can continue to get reactivated. So, and then I'll dump this out because this is not kefir. It's not all the way fermented yet. So this is not something that I'm going to keep and use. I'll just dump it out. But I'm going to go ahead and strain my grains so that you can see what they look like. So you're not supposed to use a metal strainer when you do this. So I have this little strainer that came with my water kefir kit that I bought, and that's what I'm going to use. And it's maybe plastic, I'm not really sure what it is, but it's not metal. So you can see that it's thicker here. See if I can get this where you can see those grains. You see them here, they are right here. And there might be a few left down here in the bottom of my jar, so make sure that you don't leave your grains in the bottom of your jar. Now, I think I'm just going to replace these right back in the same jar and add my fresh milk to this jar. So, got my grains down in there. I'm going to go ahead and add a cup of milk. And then I'm going to place this back on my cabinet for another 12 hours, and we will check it again then. Okay, so now after 12 more hours, now it looks about like it did after 24 hours yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just leave this sitting out for another 12 hours, and then we'll check it out at 24 hours and see what it looks like then. So it's been 24 hours now, and my kefir is definitely looking a lot thicker, more like it's supposed to look. I'm going to go ahead and strain my grains out and show you what the grains look like and what how thick the kefir is. Hopefully you will be able to tell that. So it should be the consistency of heavy cream, and this is looking much more that consistency. So this is looking good. This is what you want your kefir to look like, and it should smell sweet when you smell it. Now, I don't see any grains left in this jar, but if you're switching jars, be sure and check your jar to make sure none of your grains are stuck to the sides. They'll do that. And if they are, just get a spoon and get them out of there and put them in the new jar. I don't switch my jar every time. If this jar is still pretty clean, so I'll just put my grains back into the same jar, and then I'll add my milk in here. So here are my kefir grains. It's kind of hard to tell because you can see the kefir in there too, but here are the grains. That's what they look like. But I'll go ahead and put these back into the same jar. And then I'm going to pour my milk right into this jar. And then I'm going to put my top back on it. So I'm going to put this back on my counter and let it get to fermenting again. And I'll be throwing this away because I still don't feel like this is completely fermented, but probably my next batch I'll be keeping. So it's now been 24 hours of the 4th day, and so I'm going to go ahead and pour up my milk kefir. It looks really good. I think that we have the grains completely activated and that they're working well now. Sometimes these grains will start clogging up your strainer a little bit. You can just take a spoon and kind of move them gently around in there so that your kefir can go through. My grains have also been multiplying these last few days, and you'll be able to see that when I show you how many I have now compared to what I started off with. So now I'm going, when I put this these grains back into another jar, I'm going to add more milk. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of milk, and then I can continue to go up from there. As my grains keep multiplying. Okay, I've got this drained, and I'm going to show you what these kefir grains look like. Not sure how well you can see them. I'm going to take them out of my spoon. See, there's quite a few more than what we started off with. I'm going to go ahead and put those into my other jar. Then I'm going to add my 1.5 cups of milk this time. Now, this kefir that I strained off of the grains right here is going to go into the refrigerator, and I'm just going to put a regular plastic cap on it. And it's going to go into the refrigerator and be ready for us to use. Now, my other kefir that I am starting up, I'll put my little fabric lid back on it. And I'm not sure where my rubber band is, but I'll find that. And this will go back on the counter again for another probably 24 hours. So in a few weeks, I will switch and I'll quit using this little fabric lid, and I'll go ahead and use one of these plastic lids like this. I just won't screw it on super tight, but so that's what I'll be using with my kefir that's on my counter. and my kefir that's in the refrigerator. And it's a really good idea to label this kefir if you have cream or other things like that in your refrigerator, because sometimes it can get a little confusing and mixed up. Somebody might grab the cream thinking they have kefir, or grab the kefir thinking they have cream. If you're like me, because I store my cream and my kefir both in the mason jars. So your kefir should take probably between 8 and 24, maybe a little bit longer than that, hours to make. So you need to check it regularly. Some things that can determine that are how warm or cool it is in the room that you're making your kefir in. The warmer your room is, the quicker it's going to ferment. The colder your room is, the longer it's going to take to get fermented. So you just need to watch it, and you know, when it starts getting thick, then you know it's ready. It's time to go ahead and strain it out. So one thing about the kefir grains is you do want to feed them regularly. So they recommend every 24 hours. If yours is taking a little bit longer than that, that's fine, but you need to get them going well until to where they are getting fermented within 24 hours. If you're gonna go on vacation and you're not gonna be there to tend to your kefir grains, you can go ahead and put them in the refrigerator in milk, just like this. You can put them in the refrigerator and leave them for a few days until you get back and you're ready to use them again. And then you probably have to maybe go through a little bit more of a, getting them going again. They have to get woken up and get to where they're fermenting well. But you do store them in the refrigerator. You don't want to do that long term, but it's fine for going on vacation and things like that. So like I told you before, we like to use our kefir for smoothies. That's our #1 way. But it's also really good. You can put it in the blender with some fruit and make a fermented fruit drink. You can add a little sweetener to that if you want, or whatever else you want to add to it, but that's a good way to use it. And you can also use it in baking recipes, that would call for yogurt. You can substitute kefir, a lot of places that call for yogurt, not just baking. And kefir is so easy to do. It takes 2 ingredients, milk and your kefir grains. And your kefir grains really do all the work for you. All you have to do is keep switching your milk out regularly, and then when it's fermented, put it in your jar to put it in the refrigerator and use it from there. The other thing I wanted to say is that the longer you ferment your kefir, you will get a more sour flavored kefir, and the shorter you ferment it, you will get a sweeter one. So if you don't want your kefir really sour, keep a close watch on it, and as soon as your milk thickens up, go ahead and strain it then, and you won't have as sour of a flavored kefir. So I hope this video was helpful to you. I hope it inspired you to get some grains for yourself and make yourself some homemade milk kefir. And remember that it is a fermented product, so it has all of the good benefits that you get from ferments, and it's super easy to make. It's one of the easiest things you can possibly make. So like I said, I'm going to try to leave a few links where you can get kefir grains from, and ask around if you have any friends that make kefir. You can probably get grains from them, which is easy because then you might just have a little bit of startup, but you won't have to completely reactivate them from the dried grains. But it works fine, just like I showed you here. You can get some dried grains and you can reactivate them and be making kefir within just a few days. It took me 4 days, probably about that average for you too. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and be sure and subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell so you're notified when I make a new video. I really appreciate each and every one of you who watches my videos, and I hope to see you all back again next week for the next video.